Hey guys, it's Kevin with my review for Operation Finale. And what Operation Finale is essentially about is, of course, back in the 1960s, the Holocaust had long ended, but there still was one architect who, was one of the last orchestrators of the Holocaust that was still alive. His name was Adolf Eichmann, and basically a group of these, officers basically have to do what they can to take him down. They want to bring him in to interrogate him, put him on trial, and finally bring him to justice, and maybe get to the bottom of things of why he even was a part of it in the first place, and that's really all I'm going to say. So Operation Finale in general, I was honestly really interested in this film. I mean, it's, that time of year where we're starting to get into some more of the Oscar-type stuff. It was originally supposed to come out in October. I remember it had, a really good cast overall. The Holocaust in general, as awful of a thing as it is, the philosophy and things like that really do fascinate me. It's one of those periods in history that, though it is very tragic, a lot of it I do find quite fascinating. The stories about Holocaust survivors are things that, yes, they're very emotional, but they really do resonate with me, and I was really interested in seeing how this film was going to be, because I really did not know too much about this particular story, and I was glad to see that this film was telling a bit of a different story than other Holocaust films we've come to know. However, I also was a bit worried when the film did get moved to August, despite the fact that it made sense because they wanted to avoid that crowded September field. Usually moving a film to August is never really a great idea, and after seeing this film, yeah, I can kind of tell why, because this film isn't really all that great. It's not at all a bad movie, it's just a very disappointing film that I think is incredibly surface level and really could have been a lot more, but we're just getting into right now, starting off with the cast. And I will say this about the film. The cast here, for the most part, is really great. I think everyone really did a fantastic job. The standout, without a doubt, being Oscar Isaac as our main character here, Peter Malkin. And I really loved him in this film. This is someone who he is kind of grappling with this because he actually has lost his sister to a bunch of Nazis. And this is something that's haunted him. And because that, it's made him increasingly erratic, and he's made a lot of missteps at his job, but he has a lot of full confidence that this is the one that's going to finally, complete this mission, and that he's actually right about this one this time, and you really are rooting for him in that regard. You're hoping that he's able to turn things around. You're hoping that he's able to prove everyone wrong, and I really did love getting into that, but you also do see the emotional impact that this does have on him, and I thought he did a really great job in this film. One scene, especially when he's lashing out on Adolf Eichmann, I thought was absolutely fantastic. This film continues to show the range that Isaac really does have. He really did give it his all, and it's unfortunate that the rest of the film can't be as good as his performance here, because I really did think he was fantastic here. And then Ben Kingsley as Adolf Eichmann, I thought was definitely really good here. He's not as good as you may think he is. Like, I don't think this was a incredible performance, but he was good in the film. They do a good job of showing who he really was and showing how unapologetic he is about this. Like, he's like, yes, I did it. At first, he's denying it because obviously he doesn't want to be arrested, but once they eventually do start to interrogate him, he's very unapologetic and things like that. Some of the best scenes are between Kingsley and Isaac, and the way that he would kind of threaten Isaac's character, I thought was actually really good. I think Kingsley did do a very good job in a lot of those scenes. Again, it's nothing amazing, but I do think he was very good here, and he was definitely very well casted. As far as the rest of the cast goes, I think everyone pretty much did a really solid job. Someone I do want to highlight is Nick Kroll in this movie. Really impressed me here. The only performance I've seen Nick Kroll in prior to this that I liked him in was Sausage Party, and even in that, he was doing, the douche character, and I thought he was a lot of fun there. But what I really liked about him here is that he's a lot more toned down. He's much more toned down here. It seemed like he was kind of holding back a bit, and I think this restrained performance really did him a lot of good. It showed the talent that Kroll had when he's not completely over the top and playing a character character like what he did in Uncle Drew. I think this is much more closer to what he should be doing, and I do actually want to see Kroll do more films like this, because I actually do think he was pretty great here. Mélanie Laurent, I thought was pretty good. Haley Lou Richardson, I thought was really good here. Really, everyone, I think, does do a very good job. There are a couple Nazi officers here and there that I do think was a bit over the top, but for the most part, I thought all the acting was pretty good, and they're certainly not the main problem with this film. But now we do have to get to the directing and the writing, which, let me just say, the directing by Chris Weitz also, I don't think is really the problem here. I think he did a good job with directing this film overall. You know, he tells a very, it's a very harrowing story, but it also is a story of triumph, because it finally does feel like, you know, this is sort of their retribution for what the Nazis did, and this is their way of kind of repaying them. And I did think his directing was very good there. He's not afraid to get into some dark stuff, and I think he did a very good job with his directing. My problem with his directing is my problem with this entire movie, is that it's very, very safe. There really isn't anything he does that really does stick out. He really does not seem to have that much of a style here. He just kind of tells a very straightforward story, and look, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just very much the bare minimum. And with a film like this, I feel like you need to kind of give a little bit more of a style here, and that simply just wasn't here. And I don't think his directing was really all that great. And again, it's nothing awful. Like, it's certainly not what you'd expect from the director of Twilight New Moon, that is for sure. It's not on that level, but it's nothing really that grand and nothing really that impressive. And I kept wondering throughout the film if someone like, say, Steven Spielberg or, you know, someone who does bio, or Robert Zemeckis or someone like that, if they got their hands on this film, or hell, even Martin Scorsese, if they got their hands on this film, would they be able to make it a little bit better in terms of style? And like I said, there just really wasn't much there for me. I think, again, he did a good job with his directing, but it just felt kind of bland and not really anything that great. The writing also to this film also leads me to my biggest issue, and again, this will lead me to one of my biggest one of the biggest, I think, strengths of the film, and that is Oscar Isaac's character, Peter Malkin. I already said that his character, I think, is very well written. We get into the character's plight with him at work and how a lot of people, they don't have a lot of faith in him. Like, they're hoping that he's correct, but he's flied off the handle before, and you get the sense that maybe this is his way to turn things around. And I really did love getting into the story of what happened to his sister, you know, what event, you know, they take a lot of time with really delving you into his character. They give you these flashbacks, and you don't really know how they're connected, but eventually you start to put things together, and you start to realize what actually happened to him, and I think they did a very good job with building his character. And I really did care about Malkin a lot. The problem is, his character is so well fleshed out that the rest of this movie, in comparison, feels so stale and so nothing. Mostly all the characters, minus Peter Malkin, have almost nothing to do, especially when it comes to Adolf Eichmann. You would think that because this is someone that was the last architect of the Holocaust, that maybe he would be a really interesting character. Maybe we could get into his ideology. And for me, at least, not really. I really did not find myself all that invested in his character all that much. I don't know if Adolf Eichmann was really this bland, but to me, he just seemed like another officer working in the Holocaust. There really wasn't anything that exciting about him. There really wasn't anything that interesting about him, and I just did not really find him to be that interesting of a character. The only time I really cared that much about him is when he is directly threatening Malkin's character. You know, trying to tempt him with things, you know, trying to set him off to, you know, make him fly off the handle and get him to crack with, like, talking about his sister and things like that. But other than that, I really did not care all that much for him. And again, like, obviously, sure, he's an awful guy, what he's able to do, but look at someone like, for example, Ray Fiennes' character in Schindler's List. You really hate that guy. You absolutely despise him, but the reason that his character is so well written is because you totally understand where he's coming from. You really understand what Amon Goth is really doing in that sense. Like, you get what he's really trying to do. Obviously, you don't at all agree with it, but you can see where he's coming from. And here, not really. It just kind of felt like he was just simply another guy that was working on the Holocaust, and there just really, to me, wasn't anything interesting about him. And as for all the other characters, they sadly don't really have a lot going on. Mélanie Laurent is just this girl that Oscar Isaac had a thing with, and they had some sort of fallout, and now they're not together anymore, and he wants her on board for this mission, and you really don't understand why. They just kind of need her there. She doesn't really contribute much of anything, but she's just kind of there, and I think, honestly, she was kind of wasted here. Anytime they go back to their relationship, I really did not care. I found myself very uninterested in what was going on there. And all the other characters, like I said, Nick Kroll, Lior, Raz, as good as they are, really don't have anything going on. But that is nothing compared to Haley Lou Richardson's character, because you guys will probably be like, what? Haley Lou Richardson's in this movie? I didn't see her in the trailers or anything. Well, that's because she's in this movie for all about 10 to 15 minutes, and then she's basically gone. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I can give you countless examples of characters that did not have a lot to do. Matthew McConaughey in Wolf of Wall Street, for example, but they still did leave some sort of an impact. They still did have something to do with the story. Haley Lou Richardson, not at all the case. She starts off and you think, okay, maybe she's going to be a major part of this story. And there's this scene where basically she's having this conversation because she's trying to, like, get information from, Eichmann's son at the time, and basically trying to, infiltrate that. And they're somehow able to get this information. They're able to get a complete transcript of everything that Eichmann and his son had in that conversation. And they said that they got it from Sylvia. So I was thinking, because of this, that at some point they were going to cross paths. At some point we were going to see Sylvia working with them. But they never do. They never go back to her. It never really happens. The whole movie, like, again, this would not be a problem for me if they introduced her as, like, a major part of this film, but they just kind of forget about her. We see her on, like, a train for a second. We see the backside of her at one point, but she never comes to the group of the, she never comes to the group of the intelligence officers for some reason, and I really didn't understand it. It seemed like they were going to cross paths, but like I said, that story never really felt complete. It felt like that was a story that was beginning, and it didn't have an end for some reason. I don't really know why she even really needed to be in this film, honestly. Like, sure, they were able to get the information from her, but that's really never explained. It's never explained what position she has on the team, anything. You just get the sense that they're sort of working together, and you don't really know why, and I think they could have dived a lot deeper into that, and they just simply didn't. And like I said, this film is also incredibly safe. There really are no risks here. The most graphic it gets is, like I said, the killing of Malkin's sister. But even that, we always cut away from the bloodshed. And I kept thinking of, like, Black Klansman, for example, and that horrific speech that we hear from that older gentleman when he's recounting that story of what happened to that black woman back in the 1800s. Just remembering how gruesome it was and how hard to listen to it was, and just, I was so proud of Spike Lee for going there. It was such a bold direction, and there's nothing like that here. This film, like I said, is just very, very safe. I very much attribute to the fact that it's PG-13, but, like, I've seen films that are PG-13, and they still do go a little bit edgy, and they still do go into some really dark stuff, and this film just didn't really do that. You hear about it in passing, but I just never really felt like it was that, they really went all that far with that stuff, and I think they could have done a much better job with that. The story in general, also, I really did not find all that interesting. The second act of this film, I honestly was kind of bored. The first and the third act, I thought were well-paced, but the second act especially, I honestly was kind of bored by, and I just really was not all that interested. The cinematography is fine. It's nothing amazing. Similar to the directing, it just does not really have any style. I will say the score by Alexandre Desplat, I thought was actually really good. Once again, he gives another really good score. It's not Shape of Water level or anything, but I'm not expecting it to be. I mean, that's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime type score, but he still does a very good job with the score here. I really did enjoy it. Very frenetic, and I really did enjoy it a lot. The editing, like I said, I really did not feel this film was paced all that well, particularly on the Haley Lou Richardson side of things. Her character just kind of disappears, and I don't really know what happened to her. Ultimately, Operation Finale is just a very average film. There are things about it that I really do enjoy. I enjoyed a lot of the spying. I enjoyed a lot of the getting there. But once Adolf was, in fact, in captivity and he was being held hostage by all these guys, it just didn't really seem like the film had a lot of places to go. The film really only interested me all that much when it focused on Oscar Isaac's character. But other than him, there just isn't really a lot going on in terms of character. You hear some characters that had relatives that die in the Holocaust and things like that, but it never really got into the nitty-gritty of what really went down there, and it always felt like it was kind of holding back, and that overall really did disappoint me. A lot of the characters are very much wasted. It doesn't really seem to have much of a style to it, and I think in the end, it is well made for the most part. You know, I do think it did the bare minimum of what it needed to do. It just never really went the extra mile for me, and because of that, that's why it did, in fact, let me down. I can definitely see why this film did go to August. It is honestly kind of Oscar baity. It's not all that interesting of a story. It has some good performances in there, but just overall, it really did not do too much for me. So at the end of the day, guys, I am going to give Operation Finale overall a C+. But that's really it for my review of Operation Finale. Let me know if you guys saw this movie or all, left your thoughts. And I really have not heard too many people talk about this one. So, interested if you guys saw it, just let me know how you felt about it, all that kind of stuff. What you think of Oscar Isaac, Ben Kingsley, etc. But that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. See you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.